Welcome, ladies and gents. Let's talk boxing. An emphatic big bang of a night for ZHILEI ZHANG as he decimates the juggernaut Joe Joyce inside 3 rounds. We spoke in the preview to the fight about certain things that Joe Joyce had to be able to adapt to, adjust to, and implement if he was going to be able to turn the tide and win this fight. Unfortunately for Joe, he was only able to implement one of the things that we spoke about. Everything else, he chose to go down another route from a tactical perspective, and I knew fairly early on that this was not going to turn out well for Joe. And prior to the fight, I actually expected that Joe would be able to implement certain things, and that if he was able to get out of those first 6 or 7 rounds, you would start to see him build up a head of steam. You could see Zhang's output drop quite significantly. Joe could start to outwork him, and I thought that Joe could very well get this fight on points. And whilst I expected there to be a lot of controversy after the fight, just like there was, say, with Hrgovic and Zhang, I felt that Joe might be able to do it. But we were talking about the probability of sort of like a hierarchy of outcomes. And if you're talking about the probability, a very close second to that was that Zhang would get him early, and that is what he did. Let's talk about what Joe Joyce did and didn't do and what cost him the fight, what Zhang was able to do, and where both of these guys go from here. For a start, we spoke about the fact that Joe would have to move to his own left, stay away from that backhand, and he did that. That was the most basic thing that he had to do, and pretty simple thing to try and implement after long camps, and he was able to do that. But we also spoke about the fact that it's not just a backhand that he's got. He's got a wonderful lead right hand, ZHILEI ZHANG, where he really steps into it with either a hook, usually a hook, or he can jab over the top of your lead hand, and it's a powerful shot. And the way to bypass that, therefore, is not just to move to your left. You've got to get close to him. You've got to smother that lead hand. You've got to occupy it by jabbing that lead hand, hitting that lead hand, and then collapsing the pocket and getting close. And from there, you saw that in the first fight, Joe Joyce was able to land double left hooks to the head, left hooks to the body. And every time he was moving to that side, particularly towards the 5th round, you started to see that Zhang was struggling to find a home for his big, powerful shots. And if Joe could do that and take away the danger that was coming his way early, to weather that early storm, then who knows how the fight could have played out later on. Instead, Joe opted to go down another route. He was moving to his own left and he was active with that jab. But instead of collapsing the pocket and getting close to Zhang, he was choosing to try and stay away. And what Zhang was able to do in the very first round is actually stay very composed. Remember, there are question marks about this guy's stamina. So what you want to do is make him work. You want to make him expend the nervous energy. He wasn't forced to do that. There weren't any feints. There wasn't any threat of coming inside. So he didn't feel as though I've got to react to certain things. He wasn't having to push Joe Joyce off. So he was just waiting for his moment in the first round, and nothing much happened. He landed a few backhands to the body, did Zhang. I thought he won that first round, but very little activity. In the second round, Zhang was able to expose what Joe Joyce was doing in order to evade shots. Rather than collapsing the pocket as I'd suggested, Joe began to try to lean away from the backhand of ZHILEI ZHANG. So he was moving to his own left, and every time Zhang would seek to step in with that backhand, Joe would try and hide behind the shoulder, lead back, and take a couple of steps away from him. Now, first and foremost, that's great if you have fast feet, fast reflexes, very agile, and can lean all the way back. And we know that Joyce is agile. His feet aren't slow, but they're not as fast as, say, Tyson Fury's. The problem that he had, it works better when you are a taller fighter with range. For instance, Devin Haney did it very, very well against George Kambosos. Tyson Fury does it very, very well against a whole host of fighters, because you can literally throw your arms up as an obstacle, lean behind that shoulder, take steps back, and it's difficult to get to. You're almost horizontal. But Joyce doesn't have the significant reach and height advantage over ZHILEI ZHANG. In addition to that, it works better when you're against an orthodox fighter because of the angles. When you're a southpaw and you're seeking to step back, not only are you leaning back behind that shoulder, but bear in mind, he's leaning into the center line. He's not leaning away from that shot diagonally and stepping back. He's hiding behind the shoulder and leaning his head into that center line, in line with the backhand. So when Zhang was able to follow him out, essentially, and take that step deeper and then throw the backhand on the pipe, the opening is still there to be able to land on Joe Joyce. So the choice of retreat, in my opinion, was wrong. In addition to that, you saw that ZHILEI ZHANG was able to bring in a couple of wily old veteran moves. What Zhang did in the second round, very, very clever, was a little veteran trick. He actually stepped on Joe Joyce's foot to stop that exit, pin him essentially, and then he's thrown a backhand. Now, another thing that he's done is because Joe Joyce then starts to lean back and he's leaning inside, once you step on the outside, you don't have to step in deep. You can literally get your foot right next to the foot of the opponent. In this case, right next to the foot of Joe Joyce. And that way he can't then exit. He's locked. He's trapped into that center line. So once you then lean through that, even if he's leaning back, when you're big and rangy like Zhang, he's not going to be able to lean away from you and take it away completely because he doesn't have that height and reach advantage. And so there were little wily tricks in there from Zhang, knowing how to pin Joe, affect his movement essentially, cut him off, you know. And Joe didn't really have the know-how, in my opinion, the tactical nous as to how to avoid that. The other thing we spoke about in the preview is that you should not try to exchange backhands with him. Do not throw your right hand until later on in the fight unless it's going to be a right uppercut up close into the solar plexus. It's the only time I want to see you throwing right hands early on. Or if you're going to throw a right hand, throw it whereby you're twisting but you're staying at range. Everything's long and straight from you. Don't sit there trying to make him fall short and counter him. Don't sit there trying to overreach with your right hand. Don't do any of that, Joe. Unless you're right up close and you're landing a right uppercut to the solar plexus or a short right hook, I do not want to see that right hand. At most, I don't mind if you're completely at range and you're placing right hands like the footage we were showing in the preview to the fight. You can do that. Do not load up on any right hand in the first half of the fight because you're going to get countered, Joe. What does he go and do for the stoppage? You see that Zhang throws the backhand and he sees the backhand coming, right? So he thinks he's fallen short and he's not worried. He's almost forgotten about the threat of that lead hand, something we'd spoken about. And he tries to lean back, sort of roll and load up with that right hand. Why are you trying to do that early on? Forget trying to time him with a roll counter early on. He's too sharp, Joe. Get inside that pocket, work the body. Little right hooks, little right uppercuts into the solar plexus, left hooks to the body, double up that jab in order to close the range in the first place. Come around with that left hook around the guard, something you had success with in the first fight as well. And focus on affecting the right-hand side of ZHILEI ZHANG. Too many tactical errors in my opinion. And listen, I have to say, I feel really sorry for him, man. I mean, we're talking about a heavyweight division at the moment where the WBC heavyweight champion of the world, most people's number one, if you're talking about rankings, Tyson Fury, is fighting an MMA fighter. Prior to that, he fought up a washed-up Derek Chisora. It's been an 18-month period, which quite frankly has been embarrassing for the heavyweight championship. And I understand the financial incentives. You're talking about top of the heap when it comes to Netflix sales and hits and all of that. Big book sales that he's made. He's making an awful lot of money to fight Francis Ngannou. So I understand the financial motivation for doing what he's doing. But from the perspective of a hardcore boxing fan, I think I speak for all of us when I say it's immensely frustrating. Then you've got the likes of Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. Quite frankly, their situation on both sides has been embarrassing. Anthony Joshua was fighting guys that were not considered to be anywhere near his level because we were told that the fight against Deontay Wilder was locked in. In fact, he was not going to fight at all in the summer because we were told the fight was locked in. And when Tyson Fury had put in that late bid to try and hijack the fight with AJ instead of AJ fighting Dillian Whyte, we were told again that the set plan, he's going to fight Dillian Whyte because the fight with Wilder is locked in. Now Frank Smith saying it's very unlikely the fight's going to happen. You had Deontay Wilder telling us that fight with AJ is all but agreed, it's all but locked in. And prior to that, there was talk of him potentially fighting Andy Ruiz in the interim. That fight fell through. And then Deontay Wilder started saying he might not fight anybody prior to Anthony Joshua. And now we're being told the AJ fight's not happening. Andy Ruiz has been talking about fighting everybody, and everybody else is saying that he's pricing himself out. You've got all these guys, all these names, Arslanbek Makhmudov, Frank Sanchez, guys who B-status guys, very talented, working their way up certain ranking governing boards with WBC and so on and so forth, despite not having taken any risks and refuse to take risks. And they're sitting there waiting on their ranking in the hope that somebody will hand them an opportunity. This is not what you want to see in the heavyweight division. You want to see B-status guys fighting B-status guys. And we are going to get one good one with Garcia fighting Otto Wallin soon. So that's a nice one to see. But the vast majority of these guys are not doing any of that. Well, in comes Joe Joyce, fighting everybody, taking risk after risk, big names, calling out the big named fighters as well, even guys without titles, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder. He was calling those guys out. He's called out Tyson Fury. He had his opportunity to fight Oleksandr Usyk. He could have fought a knockover job. Instead, he went after ZHILEI ZHANG. And listen, they underestimated Zhang, there's no doubt. I don't doubt that at all. They expected Joyce to win. But they saw Zhang against Hrgovic. They understood that this guy was a potential threat. They didn't have to go for a massive, big punching southpaw heavyweight. They didn't have to do that. but they did. And that's who Joe Joyce is. That speaks to who he is. And so now the fact that so many people are going to write him off and he's 38 years old, it could very well put him in the who needs him club now. Because if you're not in a position where you force yourself into a mandatory, how are you going to get into that position to earn that shot again? Can you imagine any of the other B status guys being willing to fight him? What, you're going to tell me now that Frank Sanchez or Arslanbek Makhmudov are going to voluntarily fight Joe Joyce? That's never going to happen. He's going to end up having to fight a big name fighter that could generate a lot of interest in the UK and maybe try to exert influence via his promoter. For instance, imagine we see Joe Joyce versus Daniel Dubois, and if he was able to come through that, you know, through the influence of Frank Warren, he might be able to get himself a higher ranking again. But he's going to have to really exert influence, because at 38 years old, there's not going to be many people that are going to want to get in a ring with a guy as dangerous as Joe Joyce. And I know that Frank Warren and Carl Frampton were talking tonight about how they felt that maybe his punch resistance was gone. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that ZHILEI ZHANG is a very big man, 20 stone 7. And he's just a unit, and he hits as hard as he does. To be explosive with the punching power with that mass, it's a very, very rare combination to have. You look at a lot of the big heavyweights of the past, they're thudding punchers. This is a super heavyweight, and he's a snapping puncher. It's a very, very different type of athletic attribute to have. He's a wonderful athlete, explosive athlete. And when you consider that he's landing on Joe consecutive shots and consistently, a lot of those shots would have taken out any other heavyweight. With Joe, he was able to take them until the 3rd round tonight and until the 6th round where he was pulled out in the first fight. I'm not so sure his punch resistance has gone. I'm not so sure that the other heavyweights go and clean him out. And so as a result, I've got a feeling that he could still be a real danger if you match him up with some of the other top guys. And I think a lot of the other top guys and their trainers will know that, and they're not going to want a piece of Joe Joyce. Risk versus reward. And that's why I feel sorry for him and maybe staring into an abyss when it comes to his career. With regards to ZHILEI ZHANG, he's calling out Tyson Fury. The truth is, I believe that he would be called for a mandatory for the WBO. So he's in line to fight Oleksandr Usyk. I have to ask why he wants Fury. Is it because of money? Fury's the bigger name. I would understand that. Of course I would. Is it because of the party in China who has a real influence when it comes to sport and stuff like that? Maybe they want him to fight Tyson Fury in order to try and, you know, raise the profile further of the party out there. Let's put it that way. But is there another potential here? Is there a potential that he thinks, you know what, Oleksandr Usyk's slippery, he's smaller, he's mobile. If I can't land on him early, consecutive shots, consistently to take him out with the stamina that he's got, and I do have some gas tank issues, I'm 40 years old, how's it going to work out for me in the last 6 rounds? Maybe that's in the back of his mind. In other words, maybe stylistically, beyond all the commercial aspects, he fancies his chances against Tyson Fury more than he does against Oleksandr Usyk. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents, about all the topics we've spoken about tonight. Did Joe Joyce get his tactics wrong, as I believe he did? Do you believe that even if you got them right, it makes no difference? Zhang has just got his number. Maybe you think it's got nothing to do with Zhang having his number at all, but that Joe Joyce is just finished. He's not the guy he used to be. And where does Zhang go from here, and what is his ceiling? Don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching, guys. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.